And welcome back to the show. It is Richie McCormack here with you right through until 10 p.m. tonight on Off the Ball. Delighted to say joining us back in studio after taking his little break after the news round is one Mr. John Ward. John, how are you?
It's still warm out there.
It's oppressive, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't sleep. That's the problem. I had to go downstairs last night. Just can't sleep.
I kind of feel bad for you at this stage, and feel bad for anybody who can't sleep at this stage, because it's oppressive. It's not nice. We've gone past the point of where it's grand weather. Sure, it's nice to have a bit of sunshine for the football on a Friday night too. Lads, can you turn it off now?
I do kind of enjoy it. Like, I do enjoy I enjoy cycling in it. I enjoy kind of sitting in the park having a beer, kind of, but it is hot. And the worrying thing is, like, this isn't on a global scale, this isn't at all hot. I mean, I was at a Bray All United game at the Carlisle grounds, and everyone was like, oh, this is too hot for me. And I think with the day before it was like 54 degrees in Death Valley or something. I was like, this isn't hot.
Yeah. Moving on to slightly chirpier fare. We've got Irish teams involved in Europe. We're, after narrowing our focus down to the Conference League, obviously with Shamrock Rovers' exit.
Are you a fan?
From the Champions League. Do you know what I was until I saw the draw for the third qualifying round? And then I went, lads. Because the promise and the premise of the Europa Conference League, to give it its full title, is that it was supposed to give quote-unquote lesser teams and from lesser leagues an avenue into more meaningful European action. So it's not just 3 qualifiers, 2 qualifiers, and then you're out. It's that, you know, these teams from countries like ourselves and from countries like Luxembourg or from North Macedonia or wherever has a chance to get into the group stages. And then you look at Bohs possibly getting PAOK, I think.
We're actually from the old Macedonia. They're from what they would think is South Macedonia.
Exactly. That's why they had to change their name. And then you have Vitesse Arnhem awaiting Dundalk.
We're seated.
Should they get through? And you're like, what's the Jesus point in this? It's just like the Europa League, but not as good.
Yeah. Well, I hope those teams take it seriously, you know, because I think like the likes of the Spurs, like, what are they going to think of it, you know? But I think, in fairness, like, the game, we were both at the game in the Aviva Stadium last week. That was brilliant, like,
yeah,
you know. And you're playing a team roughly comparable to you, and the next step is a team that I think Bohs have a chance of beating. So I'm kind of a fan, and like, the prize money's quite good. Like, so it's not like you're thrown into this third-tier competition and it's rubbish, because like, it's 300 grand and so on and so forth per round. So I'm kind of a fan.
Last week, what did you make of the occasion at the Aviva for Bohs and Stjarnan? Obviously, the result is fantastic from a Bohs point of view, but I think what a lot of people who don't necessarily have an LOI on them would be ingratiating fans back to the Aviva, having 6,000 there. It's now going to be up to 8,000 for Dundalk next week. What did you make of the whole machinations of it all?
I loved everything about it. Like, yeah. I walked from down the canal, and the closer you got to, like, Balls Bridge, just this swarm of Bohs jerseys. And the thing was, like, it wasn't one Bohs jersey, it was like the Bohs jersey with the Refugees Welcome, it was the Bohs jersey with the Fontaines, it was their lovely home jersey, and it was like, Bohs are becoming a big deal here. Like, and I spoke to Bohs fans after the game. You could have a beer after the game along the canal, like in your t-shirt at like 10:30 or whatever, and the Bohs fan was saying to me, I don't recognise an awful lot of these Bohs fans. That's a bit strange for a League of Ireland fan, because usually you kind of know everyone. And then as for the game itself, like, I didn't think Stjarnan were much good, to be fair, but like, just to see League of Ireland players who a lot of them hadn't really played there before just take to the venue, and Dawson Devoy, like, the performance he produced, the noise the 6,000 fans could make in a 50,000 seater stadium, whatever, the old triangle, 3 goals, you know, a lot of kind of happy people to be able to watch football again in a beautiful stadium. It was just fantastic. I loved it.
The occasion was absolutely perfect, because the night itself was gorgeous. I came in from the Beggar's Bush kind of direction and up towards the stadium there, and like you say, Bohs jerseys were strewn everywhere. A lot of them with that members jersey, obviously for the people who bought in over the year. But the occasion was fantastic. The weather suited it perfectly, and then we had a really commendable game of football from the Bohemians team, and a lot of the focus and the attention afterwards was on Dawson Devoy and the performance he put in midfield. Ross Tierney obviously has caught a lot of eyeballs this year. There is a pretty high ceiling for a couple of players in that Bohs team that maybe extends beyond Dalymount Park in the League of Ireland, you'd suggest.
Yeah, and then like young Mullins, who scored like, what is he, 16? Like, already kind of been touted as a replacement for Devoy, who himself is a teenager. And Devoy, as Keith Long said afterwards, he was controlling the game, and that, like, to control a game of football at that age is quite extraordinary, you know. So this whole Kevin's link up that Bohs have, I mean, the future of Irish football, a lot of it will have to do with the harmonious relationship of the feeder club like Kevins and Bohs, and the players that Kevins and Bohs have produced. Like the goal that Mullins got actually on Sunday, I thought was special for anyone to do that. His control and all that. But Ross Tierney, I'm a massive fan of him. Like he's the one player, if I were League of Ireland manager, I'd want to sign him. He's a complete pest if you're a defender, but he's this understated technical quality that I think people don't give him. Like I've spoken to people within the league and they're like, oh, he's no Dawson Devoy, but like pound for pound, I'd say he's actually almost produced as much for Bohs this season as Devoy, if not more, in terms of goals, chances, winning the ball back all the time. Kid from Ballymun, you know, playing at that level, it's just fantastic. And then Andy Lyons at the back, Talbot, I think. I mean, a lot of these players could be playing at a higher level. I really think that. And Bohs have done this relatively on a smallish budget. They've won the money to get into the next round. They have a lot of valuable commodities now. Whether Devoy will stay, I think he's out of contract at the end of the season. So that's like kind of a, I don't know what you make of that, what'll happen there. Because for the young player, it is a difficult one. He doesn't necessarily want to be tied down if it means he can't leave. But I think he should stay for a while longer. He's getting... And he's playing in the Aviva Stadium. He's playing in Europe. He's not going to get that where he goes next.
Yeah, that was my worry last week from even from a neutral's perspective, is that Bohs haven't played there before. And it's a massive stadium, it's a massive pitch, it's a huge occasion, and that they might be overawed by it. And I think bar the first 2 minutes, I think they really got stuck in and really looked like they took to the place, and it didn't seem a bother to them. And when you have teenagers who are out to play on that stage and who are able to, you know, absorb the occasion the way they did, I mean, that's a really commendable thing from a football team, and to the way they're managed, I guess, as well.
Totally. And like the cup final, and I don't want to talk about the cup final at this moment for too long, but the cup final has been a lot of Shamrock Rovers, mainly Dundalk and Cork, mainly Dundalk, a bit of Shamrock Rovers. Like if Bohs were to get there this season, it's made for them. Like the crowd they would bring those players back to the Aviva Stadium. And I think you're right, it shouldn't be understated. Like they could have frozen on that occasion, but I don't know, is it just being young and just having no fear, really? I think they're an exceptionally well coached team. Like they've always punched above their weight. Now it was disappointing they couldn't beat Longford, because you have to kind of respond, and they're not guaranteed European football through the league next season. They have to kind of get through that. But the quality of Devoy's little jink in the penalty box for the first goal, you know, the pass even from Buckley for Bert's goal, the little back flick from Tierney that Devoy should have scored from, there was an awful lot of quality. And that's the type of game that we need on TV, because I think generally League of Ireland like games don't get great viewer figures, and a lot of it is because it doesn't look great. I mean, Oriel Park is a kip basically, like, and you know, play that game in Oriel Park and it's not the same. Like the pitch is bad, the ground is a ramshackle. Play in the Aviva Stadium and everything looks beautiful. Yeah.
You mentioned that they have a decent chance of getting through this week, well, over the course of the next week or so against Dudlange. They're a side from a country I don't think Irish fans need a reminding of how their pedigree is on the up. Dudlange themselves got to the group stage of the Europa League last year, so they're no mugs in that sense. It's not as if you would come up against a Progress Niedercorn as Cork City did maybe a few years ago and think that you have a 50-50 chance of going through. I think Dudlange will be the favourites for this one, but you seem to think they have a chance.
They would be the favourites, but the other Luxembourg teams haven't performed well, and it's kind of like collateral form in racing now. You're trying to take something from column A, something from column B, and look in the middle and see, like, can we mix these up? But for me, take that out of the way. Bohs they're in the middle of their season and they've had 2 European games. The confidence they would have gotten from that occasion, and I think it's a massive plus. Like, we're probably both a bit nostalgic for winter football. Like, I think, you know, when I was in the Seaside, when I was in the Carlisle grounds the other day, I was like, I remember this place when it's Baltic, and for some reason I was like, I'd actually prefer that at the moment. But if since we moved to summer football, the Bohs have a massive advantage going in there in the middle of their season with a very strong squad, players spring off the bench, and having won the 2 games, and they're taking on, pardon the pun because it's not going to be cold, but they're taking on a team who's coming in a bit cold.
Georgie Kelly, 2 words, he's had an incredible season. Like, he really has, and I don't think much was expected of him coming in, because they'd lost Andre Wright as the striker. They had brought in Georgie, who was, let's say, peripheral at the last couple of clubs he's been at. A lot was expected of him, I guess, at Pats and at Dundalk, and never really came to fruition. Keith Long took a punt on him, and it's paying dividends hugely this term.
Yeah, because the 2 goals he got were just, when everything is going right for you. Like the second one, he literally robbed the ball off Liam Burt. Liam Burt went on a run. The ball, Georgie kind of lost the ball. It hit off Dawson Devoy's head. Liam Burt, who's like probably seen stars here, to quote Troy McClure, and he's like he's gonna shoot, and Georgie just robs the ball, like scavenges the ball off him, and doesn't think anything of it on his left foot and scores. And the first goal, I think Dawson Devoy is trying to shoot there.
Yeah.
There's Georgie, bang, should have scored a third. To be honest, like I thought his general hold-up play wasn't that great at times, and that's something that was probably a criticism of him at St. Pat's and to an extent at Dundalk. But he wasn't scoring at Pat's, and whatever way you say it, and like Stephen O'Donnell and Pat's have had a great season, Long and Crawley, and I think principally the players behind him have gotten the best out of him, and the last few weeks everything he touches turns to gold. And like I sent him, I very rarely like text Georgie Kelly, but we'd done a podcast with him recently, so I texted him after the game and I said like well done or whatever, and all he wanted to talk about was Dawson Devoy.
What kind of a fella is he like?
Like honestly, you could not meet a nicer bloke, an absolute gent. And spoke to him after the Rovers game in the league, and it's a funny thing, like, because he'd gone on a goal scoring spell, but he hadn't gotten that many important goals at that time. And then he scored against Rovers, and it was again a goal of a player full of confidence. And he was like a fella who was just like walking on water. He's such a high, and you kind of remember like when you play a game of sport and you've done well and you come off the pitch, that feeling, it's hard to describe, but when you do it at that level, he's just absolutely loving life. And I think that Bohs squad, there's a special kind of bond between some of them players, and Georgie, he's totally unrecognisable, like literally unrecognisable from the player he was 12 months ago. Like he's completely, and he didn't start well for Bohs either. And no. a few people, Bohs fans, were saying to me, what have they done here? And I was talking to another Bohs fan, and Long said at the start of the season, trust me on this is going to work out for us. And like some of their signings have like just worked out exceptionally well, but none better than him. Yeah.
On the other side of the European coin then, this week we have Dundalk playing Levadia Tallinn. How do you judge that one to go? Because again, it's a 50-50. Dundalk have actually been in a really good run of form since Vinnie Perth has come back into the club.
Yeah, like Dundalk last season, it was almost like they parked all their troubles when they got to Europe, and as much as they lost all their games in the Europa League group stages, they scored 8 goals, like, which is no mean achievement. That was a really tough group, playing against Arsenal obviously, a couple of other good sides as well, but this season I think Vinny coming in fairness, like the whole thing is a mess. Like I don't know what they're doing with Patrick McElhenney, when they're going to sell him. I don't know what the owners are going to do at the end of the season, but Vinny has come in and he's like, it is the steady the ship analogy. That's exactly what he's done, and they've scored 5 goals in Europe. They haven't conceded. They've serious talent in that team. Like they've Will Patching at Derry was one of the best players in the league this season. Now Dundalk have him back. They've Patrick McElhenney. They've Michael Duffy. Macmillan's performances in Europe are up there with the best League of Ireland player has ever done. Historically, maybe they're still a bit ropey at the back. I wouldn't be sure about the goalkeeper, but I think they go in there confident enough. They've come through a couple of good performances in the league. Again, like Tallinn, Estonian clubs, League of Ireland clubs would generally be thinking they'll beat the Estonian club. Levadia Tallinn aren't a bad side. I'd say it's probably 50-50, but I think Dundalk, I also think, and we spoke about the heat, I actually think not playing in Oriel, like if you play Astro, and Oriel is a bad Astro pitch at the moment, all those little black pellets, I'd say it could be 5 degrees hotter on the pitch. Yeah. Playing in Tala, which they like, will be a far better option for them. And I hope they get a crowd. Like I hope people support them, because they're Irish players that deserve a shot at more European glory, and I think they'll do okay.
On Will Patching, he was somebody who was brought over from, I think he came through the Man City youth system, wasn't it?
He was there for like since he was a nipper.
Yeah, Vinnie Perth signed him initially, and then he didn't really get used initially under Perth at the start of last season. Then when Vinnie left, I don't think Filippo Giovagnoli and Rossi knew what they were doing with him. He obviously went on loan the start of this term to Derry City, and has begun to show the player that I think, like when Vinnie was out of the Dundalk job, a name that kept cropping up when he was mentioning the talent in the Dundalk squad was that of Will Patching, and he's definitely showed it for Derry this season, and now he's transferred that form again to Dundalk.
Yeah, like I love the story of a League of Ireland player who's a kind of a left field signing from abroad, but then moves on to a different League of Ireland club, like say Ali Coote, who's like becoming a really good player for Bohs. And Will Patching was a cult hero at Derry. Like he was just, his set pieces, like I'd never seen anyone with as good a set piece in the League of Ireland as Jack Byrne, but Patching was well up there. His delivery, his trajectory, the power. But Rory Higgins spoke about in general play as well. He did a lot of the dirty work, which he didn't expect. Now, I'm fairly sure he didn't want to leave Derry. Like, he was happy there, things were going well, but he's come into Dundalk. I watched the game against Newtown, who were poor, but he was just in second gear, and he's so much ability. He should be playing at a higher level, but I don't know what you think. I think sometimes these kind of fancy number 10 type players, I think they're more at home in the League of Ireland than going to a team in England where they might have to graft more and they might be put out in the wing. I think they're given more of a kind of a license to roam, maybe like Jack Byrne here. And he's just a beautiful footballer to watch. And him and McElhenney are like when you're playing a game of Astro and they're two lads who are vastly superior to everyone and they just want to pass the ball to each other. Yeah. That's the way they are. They're just looking for each other, little flicks, and it's beautiful to watch. And we're very lucky to have him in this league.
Yeah, we are indeed. A busy weekend coming up, the amazing title race, and that needs mentioning as well, because I think at the start of this season it did look like it was going to be a procession because Rovers were in such imperious form that they were going to run away with this league. We've had Pats challenging them, we've had Sligo Rovers with an excellent squad under Liam Buckley challenging them as well. That's all parked now because we've got the first round of the FAI Cup, and your beloved Galway United have a hell of a time there, Hans. Yeah,
like the whole Shamrock Rovers thing, I thought, like most people, I thought they'd probably win the league comfortably enough. They went through this wobble, which a lot of it seems to be to do with the fact that, like, they have a big squad, but for some reason they seem to be stretched. Then I think they had a turning point in the season was last week, where they played against Slovan Bratislava. Now, they rode their luck in many respects, but at the same time, they were very unlucky because they should have gotten a free and arguably should have brought the game to extra time, in which case I think they may have gone through. So they didn't kind of sulk over that because they went up to Derry. There was a massive COVID scare. It looked like they might have to play like a lot of their 19s. They went 2-0 down, and I would defy anyone to look at a better League of Ireland comeback. They absolutely ran riot, and Graham Burke, some of his play was off the charts. Dylan Watts, what a footballer. He's back in. He was brilliant. Gaffney got a contender, I think, for one of the best goals we've seen this season. Joey O'Brien is back. Kavanagh is back. I don't know. I kind of watched that Derry game, and I was like, yeah, if they play like that, there's nobody going to beat them this season. But Galway United... do you know the way, Richie? I'd love a run at the Cup. I'm supporting Galway United since I was like 16. I've never seen them win anything. I've seen them got to a Cup semi-final. It'd be great to do something, and then you're drawn against Shamrock Rovers away. Yeah. So it's not... like, Galway United are going great, but it's a completely different level. John Caulfield has said we've no chance. We've probably a slightly better chance than no chance. You kind of get them when they're preparing for Europe and they do have a title race. There is that sense that you could catch them at least off balance a little bit and cause a shock. Maybe get it to extra time. Maybe, cause a bit of a shock and knock them out. Especially for a Galway side who have improved. They've been on an upward curve this season. We talked about Shamrock Rovers, who started out great guns. I was worried about Galway because they had such a brilliant end to the season last year under John Caulfield. He's a man who, through his exploits with Cork City, would know Rovers pretty well, would know how they tick, would know how to beat them as well. And you would think that it's something... As soon as I hear John Caulfield saying, we have no chance, I'm kind of like... They have a bit of a chance here. Yeah, because I think, like, I was trying to... I'm the Galway United media officer here, so, like, whatever I say, you can kind of basically turn away now or whatever. But I was like, is he being mischievous here or is he not? And I think he was half being mischievous. But you can easily make the case that the levels they're playing at, we have, like, we were in Bray, we drew 0-0 or whatever, so that was grand. The problem with it is, I think Shamrock Rovers have a lot of players coming back. Richie Towell has played, like, 3 or 4 games. They'll probably want him to play. Dylan Watts is just back in. If they don't play Gaffney up front, who's from Tuam, and I think wanted to play for Galway United when he was younger, they could play Aaron Green. So, like, it's in Tala as well instead of in Galway. But I think, in fairness to Galway United players, you've got to embrace occasions like this. There's no pressure on them. It's very, very unlikely, but stranger things have happened, possibly. For the quote-unquote bigger teams, it has been a pretty favourable draw, you have to say, throughout. Well... 4 all non-league games, which means that a quarter of the teams in the last 16 will be non-league teams. So you could fluke your way into a semi-final without really playing anyone particularly hard. Bohs have gotten College Corinthians. College Corinthians down Turner's Cross, yeah. Yeah, so it's like the context of the League of Ireland. Like I like, obviously, we all like the underdog, but like football at that level, COVID has absolutely decimated it. So it's particularly hard at the moment. Your League of Ireland clubs are on a different level now with their the way they approach the games, their physicality, fitness and all that. It's hard to see any kind of real... Sligo and Cork is the mad one. Sligo and Cork, I was just going to say, yeah. Because I think when Ruby Walsh was reading it out, and this is a typical kind of, like, Ruby would half follow it, so he's like, Sligo, Cork, that's a big game. Look where Cork have gone. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, they if this is rock bottom, this must be rock bottom. It's so bad. Like, couldn't beat Wexford. The fans are up in arms. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes there. Colin Healy looked apparently like really crestfallen after the game. But maybe this is something Sligo come in on a wobble after 2, bad defeats. Drogheda of Derry's the game of the round, obviously, but it's not a particularly glamorous one. But as a Bohs fan, you must be thinking like the crack you would have.
I just want to get to a cup final.
Wouldn't it be amazing, even if it's half full or whatever?
I don't care. I want to get to a cup final. I haven't been at one since. We haven't been at one since what, 2008? We won the double.
Oh yeah.
Like so, and that was in a freezing cold RDS. With Johnny Logan and Paul McClune singing before the game, like that like it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I want to get back there again. I want to get to the Aviva.
Do you know how like the FA Cup like has lost a lot of its lustre? There's no doubt about that. Yeah. And the FAI Cup was going along the same trajectory, but then when it got back into the Aviva Stadium, I think it changed everything. I think everyone wants to get there.
Everyone wants to get to the Aviva. Yeah. Everyone wants to have that evening or that day or whatever it is at the Aviva Stadium, and it was helped by the fact that when I went back there, we had a couple of crackers, and I think Shamrock Rovers and Drogheda and stuff like that have a lot to thank for that. But it's going to be a busy weekend, and best luck to everybody who's involved in the FAI Cup first round action. A team from Out My Old Way as well. St. Moctas are playing Crumlin United as well. So there's lots going on across the board. Johnny, thank you so much as ever for coming in.